Hey guys, and welcome to this hobby tips video on how to paint power weapons, in this case red ones, on Trajann Valoris from the Adeptus Custodes army faction in Warhammer 40k. So I hope I got that all right. So yeah, we're going to be playing around with power weapons, and in this case red. And yeah, I've got a couple of other videos on the channel to do with these Custodes in my blue steel scheme. So if you want to see that, I'll put the links in the down there. But today we're just going to be focusing on the axe and you know, just building up that color, putting in some nice, you know, little highlights and a little bit of that sort of lightning, I guess, effect across the surface like you see on the Games Workshop one. But we're doing it in a more sort of, I guess, yeah, red to magenta tone, using white to build up through Mephiston red, a little bit of black to darken it down. And it should be a bit of fun. And so we'll just play around with that and yeah, just have a go at it. But if you'd like to see any more of the videos, the links are in the down there, and if I'm really good, I'll put one of them in the top corner there, so you can have a look at that if you want to see the full scheme in its entirety. But yeah, I guess grab a model and let's get started. Okay, so the first step is we want to set up our gradient of color. So what that means is we're going to be adding a few stages of color from dark to light, as you see on the palette. So basically mixing a little bit of black with the Mephiston red to create a dark tone, and that's going to be our base color, which you're going to see me add now. And we're basically just beginning that base red so we can build on top of it across the blade. And then we've got a next shade up, which is less black added, and then straight Mephiston, and then a little bit of white added again and again for the highlights. So just for this one, we're just going to be starting off by just putting that base color down, nice dark deep red color, and that's going to set us up to begin basically adding light to this blade before the lightning goes down, which you're going to see in a second. So once that's on, then we get into that first, I guess, layer or shade tone, and this time you'll see me feathering this next step in the color gradient across the edge of the blade, and then running across the flat side, but leaving that little depression to get a little bit of shadow in there. And that's just so we start to see a bit of, I guess, modulation of light across the surface, so that when we add the lightning later, you'll see that undertone underneath. If you have a look at the Games Workshop one, you'll notice that's what it has. It has, like, you know, a basic shadow, a highlight, and then also the lightning on top. So that's what we're starting to simulate. And so once that's done, then we'll move into the lightning stage and the highlights across the edges. So now we're using basically straight Mephiston, and you begin by adding a little bit of light around the I guess the little node that's in the back of the axe there, and then just adding in the lightning, the jagged lines, you know, making sure that they cross each other and you have little points going off in different directions across it, but also highlighting the edge of the blade and down that edge of the flat side before it curves, and just basically building out the undertones of that lightning so that we can start using that to guide the next steps in the process. And that's where we move on to that first level of red above Mephiston, which is a little bit of white added in, so kind of a pinkish tone. And what you're going to see is me come in there and begin to sort of run my brush, my fine detail brush, along that lightning and start to pick it out. So going a little bit thinner than what the original line is underneath. So we're getting thinner and thinner and thinner as we go, and across the edges of the blade and so on, and we're running around all of that. And so you'll see now this sort of pinkish tone start to form. And then once we've gotten to that point, then we'll move into, I guess, the first stages of highlighting that lightning. So that's going to be even more white, and then we're just going to come in there with that color and start picking out even more of those little lightning lines and so on across the blade. But again, making sure that the edges are highlighted all the way down. You'll see me running my brush down the lines of the edge of the blade and so on, so that we're getting an all over highlight as well. And so then once all of that's done, now we want to start to make the lightning stand out a little bit. So these last couple of highlight steps are where you're going to see me begin to pick out the points where the lightning changes direction, or where there are angles, anywhere where it's forking or doing any of those sorts of things. And I'll start to just put some of that much brighter white pink tone into those points and start to pick them out, and also down the edge at the top and bottom of the blade, across the mid-tone of the blade, and down any of the main lines around that blade. And you'll start to see a lot of difference between the dark and the light, and that's really going to make that lightning start to pop out from the surface surface of that blade. So that's where we want to be at. And then finally, we want to make that lightning extra bright. So what you do is you get that sort of off-white pink tone, as you'll see me using, and just basically place it in, dot it in all of those little forked points, anywhere where it's changing angles, and across the very tip of the blade edge. And anywhere, any lines where it meets at a point or an edge of the weapon, around the weapon, just to help really sell the idea that this thing is a power weapon and actually turns on and has a sort of vibrant energy going through it, and that's what you want to see. So that's really the steps we're taking. We're just building up the color from a dark base and then slowly modulating that color across the edge of the blade and the flat surface, and then using those lighter stages from Mephiston Red up to create the lightning and pick out those little fine points of light through that lightning fork, so that you start to see some little bright areas across the surface of the axe. Or if you're doing a power weapon of any sort, this is the sort of process that you'll go to, and you'll end up with something really cool. And there we go, one power axe all done. So you can see it's relatively easy, although it does require a fine detail brush and a steady hand. There's no real tricks here. You're just building up those undertones and then adding the highlights in, and just following the pattern that you've made, basically. That's all you're doing, and just building it up to the brightest points where the lightning crosses and so on, and you'll get something really nice. You don't have to do the lightning, but it's pretty cool when you do it, especially when you've got a large blade like that where there's a lot of flat area for you to actually do this sort of thing. It works out pretty well. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like button, subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I guess I'll catch you on the next one.